because I almost felt like women were getting duped into acting powerless. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think there's this confusion right now of like masculine and feminine, meaning masculine is power and feminine isn't power in a way. And then this assumption that feminine means kind of like open like a flower. You're like, whatever you want. And like, yes, that's beautiful, but it's not realistic. And I think if you're a powerful, bodied woman who's connected to yourself, it's never going to be like that. Part of being in your feminine is also being in tune with your power. Hello, you guys. Welcome to this week's episode of the Expand and Evolve podcast. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like I haven't recorded in a couple of weeks. And so what has been really showing up for me that I have been wanting to share and talk about is about masculine and feminine energetics. And I feel like I've been on my own journey of understanding the polarity and the poles and the importance of like masculine and feminine energy and how that plays a role in our own lives as men and as women, and then also in our relationship dynamics. And over the years, I feel like I have gone through such a journey of understanding that in itself, of like feeling like I need to be one way in order to attract something else and acting a certain way in order to get XYZ and all of these different things. And so I feel like I want to kind of take a deep dive into my own journey and just what I am feeling and what's coming up for me, because I feel like this may really offer some perspective and relatability for you guys also, because every time I'm going through some stuff and I talk about it, it hits you guys and you're like, girl, me too. And I feel like that's the same way that we kind of know we're on the same like earth curriculum of just being in this collective consciousness together. Here's the thing. If you're new here, like I started my healing journey back when I was like 21, Gabby Bernstein, love versus fear, manifestation, spirituality, all that kind of stuff. I got married, completely self-abandoned myself and my own practices, which I didn't learn till way later that that's what I was doing in not continuing to prioritize that time with myself. Literally gave myself like, oh, I'm in relationship now. And then went through this whole unraveling of understanding you can be in relationship and then you can also be individuals. And just as like a little side note part of that, in relationship dynamics, I think I have an episode on this way back, but you get into a relationship, typically what pulls you is like that chemistry, that pull, you're interested in them, right? And then as you develop your relationship, you're gonna hit the power dynamic phase where you're both kind of fighting for like who's in power. And then outside of that, when you finally realize like you're not competing, there is no who's in power. It's like you're both in your own power. It's when you reach individualization. And then that is when you can choose to continue to build a partnership together. A lot of partnerships stay in the power dynamic struggle forever. And that's what creates so much conflict in relationships. So I'm sharing this because I've had so much time to reflect on myself, my own relationships, how I showed up in them, then coming back to masculine and feminine energetics, like, and just the way that this impacts relationship. So much of what I feel like every relationship dynamic is going to be different. But as women, sometimes what happens is like we get the guy or we get the partnership and we're like, okay, we made it. We're here. And what can happen is like in that you get so absorbed in the relationship and who they are and what they want, you forget to still be an individual and you forget like who were you before the relationship. And rather than blaming the relationship or the partner, starting to look at the fact that it's like, no, you self-abandoned. And so I feel like I've had that realization for me where I started to obviously reflect and notice that in my previous relationship, I stopped all my practices, right? Like, okay, let's just start there. I stopped manifesting in the mornings, for example. Like I would sit, meditate, and manifest. That's what I used to do. That's how I started my first business. I would journal. I would connect to myself, all the things. And then I got in a relationship and like he came into my space and it kind of shifted my routine. And I never recovered. Like the entire time we were married, I never recovered back to my morning practices ever. And it wasn't until we split and I had time alone on the weekends because the kids weren't here that I was able to go, shit, like this is something I used to do religiously for myself that I stopped doing. And like, am I going to blame him Or am I going to look at myself and understand that is how I chose to function in the relationship? I chose to self-abandon my practices. He didn't say, hey, you can't do your morning routine. He didn't say, hey, why are you waking up and doing that? It's weird. I had those own thoughts of like, oh, we're in bed. We should be in bed together. Or like, oh, I don't want to disrupt him and get up early. Or like, oh, I'll just kind of merge into whatever he's doing with his morning routine, which I don't know if he really had one. Like he liked silence. And so do you get what I'm saying? Where it's like, sometimes we want to blame like, oh, it's my partner's fault, or, oh, I stopped doing this no, it's how you're choosing to show up in the relationship. And that's where that power dynamic part and then transcending into individualization is so crucial, because it's like you can choose to keep being in that relationship and that partnership when you guys finally decide that you're not going to keep doing this and trying to figure out who's right and who's wrong and who's blah, 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 and like being empowered, and you realize like you're two individuals that get to choose to live your own lives and you're choosing to partner together. Which means for me, now that I've had this space, it's been over 3 years that I've kind of semi seen somebody, one person kind of thing in between the 3 years, I would say. And I've had a lot of time to reflect and be on my own and look at my own relationship patterns of the fact that I used to self-abandon, the fact that I used to completely merge. So for example, an example of that for you guys that might relate is like, you just start watching hockey because they love to watch hockey. There's a difference of compromise for the partner and then like leaning into something you don't actually like because the partner likes it, and understanding you cannot like the same things. And yes, you want to do things that you enjoy and have mutual things that you do together, but you don't need to go pretend like you like something for the person. Like I for sure had tendencies like that in the past. Okay, so how does this relate to masculine and feminine energetics? When I started doing all of this work, the reason I brought that up is because 2020, like when I was 21, so however long that was, 12 years ago, I did this stuff, got in a relationship, he moved in, I stopped my practices because I didn't know how to function. And I still have noticed this where like I can't blame the partner. If I have people staying in my house, I also get off of routine. And that's just because I haven't learned how to necessarily like stay in my own energy when people are around my energy. And so this is something I'm learning. It's like, how do I maintain doing the things I need to do for me, even if I'm spending time with other people? Anyways, get what I'm saying? So when I say the work, I'm talking post separation, diving really deep into all of this work, going to Awaken, going to Danny Morell's programs, joining Inner Circle, doing breath work, going to women's circles, doing somatic healing, doing different stuff for my body to try to release trauma, all the different modalities I've done. Okay. I'm talking about that chunk. In that chunk, something that kept showing up was masculine and feminine energetics, and really kind of this, I don't know, traditional conditioning of the two words to say like men are meant to lead, be in power, and women are meant to be soft and flowy and trust the man to lead. Okay. That's something that I really started to fall into and believe. And it was like, wow, I didn't have that in my relationship. Oh my God, I played the masculine role. And by being the masculine role, which I would say like domineering almost, it pushed him into the feminine role. But I wouldn't even say it was the feminine. It was a passive, just not in their power. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think there's this confusion right now of like masculine and feminine, meaning masculine is power and feminine isn't power, in a way where it's like there's a difference of being in your masculine, which could be decisive and having clarity and charging forward and being direct and being decisive and knowing where you're going and like knowing what you want to achieve, accomplish, move toward in your life. Like that's technically masculine. You're using your mind, you have direction, clear focused, you know what you're moving toward. And then this assumption that feminine means that it's none of those things and that you're just kind of like open like a flower. You're like, whatever, whatever you want. And like, yes, that's beautiful, but it's not realistic. Like to think that that's how a partnership's actually going to be 24/7 isn't realistic. And I think if you're a powerful, bodied woman who's connected to yourself, it's never going to be like that. Part of being in your feminine is also being in tune with your power. And this is where I have noticed for myself. So go back 2022, let's say 2023, when I started learning about all of this stuff, I thought, oh my God, I was in my masculine and it put him in his feminine. And so now I need to try to be the feminine, which is like, which is little girl energy, not woman energy. And I feel like a lot of the stuff online right now paints the picture of the feminine as a little girl, acting like a little girl. That is not being a woman. It's not. And I think that's where, like, a couple weeks ago, I wish I could have like had the space to record while I was so charged about this, because I almost felt like women were getting duped into acting powerless in a way by like tuning into this masculine feminine energetics thing. So let me try to explain this if this isn't already landing. So when you think about it, right, like so much where it's like, oh, you're just a woman, you just let him lead and you let him guide and like you just get to be there and like just exist. I just don't think that majority of women would actually feel fulfilled in that long term. Okay. And I also don't think it's functional in a partnership to expect the man that now he makes every choice, every decision, leads every single thing, leads you, whatever, and you have no say. You have no thoughts. You just are like, ah, nah, nah. He just tells me and I just do it. Like, no, that's not what it means. Do you know what I mean? And I can't remember where I was, but I was thinking about this and I'm like, that's essentially going, like taking women out of their power. And femininity is not just that. That's a piece of being a little girl. It is not being a woman. And being in your feminine, if you're a woman, is so much bigger than that. And so something that I've been feeling and really noticing lately is I'm like, being in your feminine is also being in your power. Being in your feminine is also being in tune with yourself, your emotions, and trusting your inner guidance so much and trusting your own truth so much that it's powerful. Like something for me, I guess that here's an example I could try to give you is to think that, because this is for me, right? When I was trying to play feminine, I noticed I was doing things very little girl energy. So like, oh my God, I don't want to have too much clarity or act too decisive, because if I show that, then he might think I'm masculine. And like, what real man is going to actually be attracted to a woman that's like, I don't know, like whatever you want. I don't know, whatever you want. No, no. I feel like any real man appreciates clear, direct communication. They don't know what to do, where to lead you, where to guide you when you're not giving clear, direct communication, which means in order, I feel, to attract like a highly masculine, productive, powerful man, you also need to be like a powerful woman. And being a powerful woman is knowing her truth. So not being domineering or dominating and being like, this is the way I want it and this is how it is. And like, that's not clear, direct, and decisive. Clear, direct, and decisive could be like, I'm really craving pizza. Clear, direct, decisive. And now the man knows she wants pizza. Very easy. He knows where to lead you. He knows how to guide. He knows where to take you because you just said what you wanted. And I think nothing I have seen online, nothing about masculine and feminine energetics explains the fact that as a woman, you need to be in touch with your own healed masculine to understand you need to be able to communicate your needs, to say what you want, to be clear, to be decisive, to speak your truth in order to tell the guy what you even want. And I don't know if this will land for you, but like, I think I've gone through my entire life outside of like a couple conversations where I ever actually communicated the truth of what I wanted. I was afraid. I hoped that they could just know. If they love me, they should just know. If they know me, they should just know. Like, you've been around me enough, you should know what I want. You should be able to read me to know what I want. And you know what I'm learning, you guys? I don't think majority of men have that ability. The men who really know how to choose and do what the woman wants is because the woman has told him. She's given the guidance to allow him to know what she wants so that he can clearly lead and guide. So for example, this is something I feel, and the reason this is coming up because I'm really dissecting like divine partnership, union, relationship dynamics and how they actually can function and work. Because I think there's two sides to this, right? Like, yes, women, I talk to a lot of women who feel like they're advancing and they're on the spiritual journey and their guys aren't catching up and da 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 da. And I feel like what I've noticed is like the men need our guidance though. So not to be mother, coach, tell them what to do in a way that's like full of resentment and not respectful, but in a way that's like very loving and kind and clear because they do well with clear instruction. Like imagine you get, this is so, if you're a man, you're gonna be like, fuck, thank you. But if I was to give you, I wish I had paper right now. You are going to build a bed. You're going to build a bed, and it's easy to build the bed when you have the instruction manual. You know exactly what to do. You know exactly where you're going. You know exactly what pieces to do first. You know exactly how to put it together because it's all laid out in perfect sequential order of instruction. And then at the end, you have a bed. Okay? So wife says, I really would love a new bed. He goes, okay, great. You order the bed, you give him the bed, he builds you the bed because it has the instruction manual. You try to give him now, okay? You say you want a bed. You want a bed. The bed is the relationship, let's say, okay? So you say, I want a bed. And you hand him 25 books with pieces of instructions on 25 different books, and he has to go through them all and try to find them. Do you think he's going to be frustrated? Do you think he's going to have clear direction? Do you think he's going to make you the perfect bed? Probably not. Imagine you didn't buy the bed you wanted and you just gave pieces of boxes to 12 different beds. He makes it. He does the best he can with the information he knows. He puts it together and it's not the bed you wanted. Well, of course not, because you didn't give clear instruction to the bed you actually wanted. And I feel like this would change relationships if women could just start saying what they actually want. And it would cure so much frustration and resentment and all the things, because it's like you just say what you actually want. Just tell him what you actually want. And I feel like I wish I could have like a poll on this. I feel like men are dying for this, but they're all having to guess because women aren't clear. They expect like, okay, if you want me, you should just be able to pick me up and you should know what restaurant to take me to, and you should know exactly what I want, and you should know exactly what I want to do. And if you don't do it, like negative points, and I'm passing on you. Where I'm like, imagine you just told him what you wanted. Like, imagine we just started doing that. And part of this is also coming, I'm reading the book, The Queen's Code. If you guys are in relationships, you need to read this book. You need to read it. It is blowing my mind in a way that's like, it really focuses on why we need to be communicating our needs as women and how to do that in a way that actually supports a man to help meet your needs. And when a man really loves you and they're a problem solver, they want to achieve that. So it's like, let's say I'm like, okay, I'm hungry. And the guy's like, oh my God, cool. I'm going to get her fed. And you don't say where you want to go. So he goes, okay, sushi restaurant. We're going to go here. But again, you really wanted pizza. And now he takes you for the food to solve the problem, but you're mad. And he's like, I don't get it. Like, I literally took her to eat. Like, what is she mad about? I solved the solution, but you didn't say what you actually wanted. So now you're mad at him. It's not his fault. He just tried to solve the problem with what was in front of him and you wanted something else. So imagine you were like, no, I don't want sushi. I want pizza. He'd probably be like, okay, great. We're going to pizza. It's really that simple. And I'm learning this because it's not easy for me to clearly communicate my needs, I think, because it's vulnerable. So when I reflect back and I'm like, why was there so many instances where I didn't really say what I wanted? And I don't know if it's because it's vulnerable or because I had such a merging pattern and a self-abandonment pattern of like, whatever they want, I'll just lean into that. I couldn't even articulate what I actually wanted. So in a situation, let's say we're going on a date or we're going wherever, I'd be like, whatever you want to do, whatever. And it's like, and then I'm the one building resentment because I'm not saying what I want and what I actually need. Is this making sense? So anyways, you guys need to read The Queen's Code. It will help your relationship dynamics. And I just think resentment builds over and over and over. And then we're mad at the guy when really we just need to tell him. And then things would be better. So, okay. So on the masculine feminine dynamics thing, I just really feel when I look at the feminine in her power, in her fullness, in her wholeness, it's not, it's rage. It's power. It's speaking what you want. It is being clear. It is giving order. If you think of a queen, does she sit on the throne and just go, hopefully they like figure it out? Or would she command all of the men who were like her soldiers, let's say? Would she tell them what to do? And then her needs were always met because she was able to tell the men what she wanted and what she needed, and they would go do it. They're happy to. They're happy to when you say what you actually want and need. I don't know. I just feel like we change this one simple thing and like relationships everywhere will change. So the point of that is like, I've been moving through a lot of really deep emotion. Like I've screamed for the first time. I have processed and like pushed out like a birth of anger and rage and resentment from the depths of my belly and soul to get it out. And in that, I'm like, this is the feminine. Me crying, me being happy, me feeling these emotions, me sitting in the feelings, me tending to myself. That is the feminine. So the reason I'm sharing this is because I think what happens is like we avoid our own self and feelings sometimes, which doesn't allow us to be trusting. And I think the reason that like, not necessarily that we need men to lead us. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think what you really need for a healthy relationship dynamic is like, do you know yourself enough to allow yourself the trust of trusting another because you trust yourself so much? Does this make sense? So it's not so much like, okay, I'm giving blind faith and trust to this random guy. No, that's not necessarily the feminine either. The feminine has a powerful, intuitive, no, there is a gorgeous bluebird flying out here. Wow. The feminine has this intuitive knowing. And the way that I can kind of explain this is like, okay, let's go back to like the settler days. Okay. Like you're in a tribe and you're trying to figure out where to settle. Where's a good spot? The man may lead the people and like be like, hey, okay, here's a solution. Here's a space. Does this work for you? And then the women feel in and they go, it's a yes or a no. They're going to be the ones who are like, this feels like a yes or this feels like a no, based on their intuitive knowing. That is partnership. So it's not like the man's just like, this is where we're going and this is what it is and this is how it's going to be because I know what's best. You guys, that's not masculine or feminine. That's domineering and dominating. And I've been that before. Like the power where it's like, I don't trust anyone. And I feel like I know what's best because I've never been able to rely on people. And I couldn't trust anybody else because I thought I knew everything. And it's like, I had to be the one to make all the choices and be like, this is the way it is. And this is how it's going. And that is rigidity. That's not masculine. It could be masculine energy, wounded masculine, but it's not masculine. Masculine energy is like trusting, grounded, present, still, solid, space holder. While the feminine is the one that's like moving and feeling and having all these emotions and whatever. But the feminine also is able to tune in to that grounded knowing. Masculine. I don't think it's either or. There's polarity in both. And there's also what I feel is like masculine, feminine in the beginning of your journey of understanding relationship dynamics is there to help you put pieces to the puzzle to understand how you function. But when you actually come into wholeness, it isn't masculine or feminine. You're both. And when you're able to find that true sense of like your own truth, power, and essence from within, you're both masculine and feminine. You need both. They're cohesive. They work together. So for example, when we go back to that tribe example, the man goes, hey, okay, this property, this space looks great. Does it feel like it's going to be good for the kids and the tribe and the food and the growing and the The women are going to be the ones who feel into the earth, touch the soil, and are like, yes, this feels good. Or like, no, we have to keep moving. And then the men keep going, okay. And they trust her and her own inner knowing because they trust each other that like she must know something's off. He's going to trust that and then lead them to the next space until they find the right space. And then they both settle. Does this make sense? I hope this is making sense because it's like that is true partnership. And I think what's happening, at least I can speak for myself, I wasn't in a partnership. And I don't even know if I gave the man the space to be able to be my partner because it's like, I had my own vision and my own way and how things were going. And I was so set on that, which there's nothing wrong sometimes, right? In different spaces of relationship where like you're going to know there's something you need to go toward, chase, move toward. And like the other partner's like, okay, I'm trusting you on this. Let's go. But then there needs to be the shift where it's like, it's not always just their way and you're just passively going along with it. You need to be willing to speak up for the things that when you get that intuitive pull, like this is a yes or this is a no, can you be in an actual partnership to share that and work together? And I feel like for myself, at least when I think back, it's like it wasn't just, oh, I was in my masculine and I was doing, which I was. But it's also like I wasn't communicating. I wasn't saying what I was actually thinking and feeling. I was brushing things under the rug just as much as he was, because that's how we learned to exist together. And when I reflect on that too, I'm like, okay, could I have, like, I think about this, and I don't know if this will relate for you guys, but I've been reflecting a lot on my marriage lately and like like different little pieces of how I played a role. Um, because it's not just like, oh, I was in my masculine and he was in his feminine, and so it doesn't work. It's like, okay, but what part of me pushed him there? And I think this is the part where a lot of women need to get really radically honest with themselves rather than blaming the men. That it's like, and I'm actually going to have a conversation with him about this because I want to know if he can reflect and like remember anything specifically. But the pieces where he tried to maybe show up for you and like you didn't allow it, or he offered help and you said no, or he made suggestions and nothing was good enough for you. Um, all these different things, right? Where we're just nothing that they do is good enough. And then so eventually we just start to do it all ourselves because nothing's done right and nothing is good enough. And so we just do it all ourselves. They start to feel like, well, I guess she's got it. Like there's no use for me here. And so they take a step back and they let you handle it, which I'm not saying that's right. Okay. Like we don't want that. Obviously women don't want to be like, I've got everything and I know everything. And like, you just sit back and do nothing. It doesn't work. Like that's never going to work in a dynamic. But I think what we need to be really honest about is like, what role did we play in making him step back like that? Because naturally that's not how men function. So something we did, or even not us, it could be a previous partner, but we came into it with that energy that created that dynamic in the first place. But there's things that happened that led them to be willing to just sit back. And whether that was like the overbearing mom or the partnership before you that made them feel like nothing they ever did was good enough, so they're afraid to make choices and decisions, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. What I'm saying is like you need to be willing to look at yourself. So if you're in a dynamic right now where you feel like you're always doing and you're handling everything and he doesn't do anything, it's like, have you given the man clear direction of what you want and what it's going to provide for you? Because like that's being in your feminine also. If you want to have more space for rest, tell the man what you need. Because if he loves you, he's going to do that for you. And it might take time to shift the relationship dynamic. But I really believe like they're going to be receptive to that because they want to serve you. A true partnership, each of you want to be able to give and serve each other, which comes from direct communication, which means you need to be in tune with your own truth, get to know yourself, and be able to communicate your truth clearly. That's your masculine. And that's part of being feminine. So like, I think about this all the time now where I'm like, man, how many times in the beginning of a relationship, for example, did I just like go with the flow of how they were leading or guiding, right? And of course, there's a part where you want to watch how they respond and act. But I really think it's like, for me now, if I was to get into partnership, it's like, I need to know, like, for me to be settled, rested, and trust in you and the growth of this partnership, it's like, I need to know that something's planned. So like, for example, if I was going on a date tonight, it's like, and we go on a date, I don't want to sit anxiously for a week wondering what's happening next. You as the man like, let's communicate. Hey, for this to be a dynamic that works for me, I need to know what our next plans are. Like either let's schedule it on the calendar so that I can rest easy in between. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to be anxious about it. I don't have to waste time thinking about it. I don't have to try to like make up stories in my head. It's just clearly create it in a container of like, hey, okay, this was amazing. Let's schedule another time in like a week, for example, or clear time to actually connect and communicate, not sporadic wondering, never hearing from them for a week. And like that just doesn't work for me. So in any dynamic now, it's like, can you clearly communicate that? Because I think part of the chosen wound, and I'm sure a lot of you as women will relate to this, where like you're just adaptable. You're just like always available to try to morph, to be picked and chosen, to be agreeable with the other person, to be liked. Where I'm like, at this point now, I'm like, this is what I know about myself. This is what I need to avoid me going like anxious spiral, making up stories in my head. This is the type of relationship dynamic I need. And I just know that. So I'm like, if that doesn't work for the other guy, like, that's okay. It just means I'm getting closer to my person, because my person is going to be like, man, I like this girl. What does she need? Because like, I want to make sure I'm giving her that. Does this make sense? So even in your marriage or your relationships or your long-term partnerships, it's like, can you clearly communicate? I know that I couldn't. I've done it a couple times, but like, I know when I really look at the bulk of my relationships in the past, I didn't really clearly communicate until the very end, when I was already kind of checked out, built up resentment, and ready to be like, you're wrong and I want to leave you anyway. You know what I mean? So it's like, did I really even give them a fair chance? Probably not. Um, yeah. So I think, just to like wrap this, there's so much else I could say, but clearly this is just what needed to come out today, is don't think that everything online telling you to be more feminine is going to attract a masculine man. I think a fully healed masculine, honestly, like a whole person, not just a masculine man, a whole person, they're whole in themselves, is going to look for someone else who's whole within themselves, which isn't little girl like energy. It's not. And I feel like a lot of stuff online right now is only sharing that piece of the feminine, and that's not the whole picture. The whole picture of being in the feminine is that you express your rage, you feel your emotions, you allow yourself to be open but expressive and lean in and tune into yourself. I feel like that's the epitome of being like a potent, powerful woman. So yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to say, was like, be really mindful what you're consuming. Don't try to shape shift. I think if anything, go look at the wounded feminine part of you, the wounded masculine part of you, and try to heal that. So for me, one more example I can kind of give you is like, even though I was clear communicator before, it came with a aggressive charge if I was trying to be clear, where it wasn't said with love. It was usually said after I was so annoyed that it came out very charged, rather than like, I really kind of want pizza, or like, I really kind of, see how I did that? Like, I want pizza tonight. It would be like, things have happened, and then you're like, that time when we went for dinner, like, all I wanted was pizza. Why don't you even know me? Like, all I wanted was this and all I wanted was that. No, no, no. Like, it was usually like, like it was coming from a charge. But like, can I really get mad at the other person, or can I look at myself for all the times I self-abandoned and didn't say what I actually wanted or needed? So this actually wasn't a lot about masculine and feminine dynamics. It was more about wants and needs. But I feel like clearly that's something somebody needs to hear. And then the conversation I was having with my friend last night, I could just feel it, where she had resistance and like that feeling of surrender to trust your partner, where I'm like, if you've been that domineering woman, you made the money, you make a lot of choices, a lot of decisions, and your man is trying to offer you suggestions. Like, I honestly, when I look back, I didn't fully respect him in a way to listen, because it was like, well, I'm the one making money and I'm the one doing this. So like, I couldn't trust anyone outside of me. Where now I'm in so much trust and surrender and faith that, like, I'm not kidding you when I say I feel like I could be like, if when I meet the right person, I could be like, you handle it. Like, I don't know. I don't care that much. I'm not that attached to the money. I'm not in scarcity. It's like, I know things are going to work out. And I also trust you, and I trust what you feel, and I trust what you think. Like, I'm not going to be in a relationship or a partnership where I don't feel that. I want to be able to respect them and trust them and allow them to lead and guide, but you have to be allowing. As the woman, you have to be allowing, and you've got to let go of that grip and control. So an example in her situation, I just had said, like, I feel like, basically the example was like, I feel like, yeah, why couldn't you just rent? Like, if you guys want to travel and stuff, why couldn't you just rent? And she was like, that's what he's been saying to me. But she has this like uncomfortable resistance within her to just listen to him. And I feel like for a lot of us as women, we've been let down. And something that I've been processing lately is like the letdown of the masculine, where maybe we tried to trust in the past and we were let down. That's me. Like times where I like allowed him to lead or guide, or other people in the past where I felt let down. It didn't go the way I wanted. But it's like, did they really let you down, or did we not communicate what we actually needed in that moment and what we were really thinking? And that's where you have to be willing to self-reflect and look at yourself and be like, man, when I had those strong intuitive feelings, what if I just communicated that also and then trusted, because he knows me based on me always communicating my truth, that he's going to lead me and guide me because he loves me? Does this make sense? And so in her situation, when I was saying, like, just do that then, and she was like, oh, this is bringing up all kinds of shit for her, because she's like, I'm the one that's used to being in charge and like making the decisions, and like it's scary to let go and trust him too. And I'm like, yeah, but when you trust yourself, you know that it's like, if you trust that choice or decision, it's like you're not doing it passively. It's not like I'm going to have some random guy. I'm like, I'm just ready to let you lead. So have access to my bank accounts. I don't really know you. No, there's like stuff that goes into allowing that. But it's like, when you trust yourself, you know that like nothing bad or wrong. Like you're going to be fine. And you can trust yourself that like when you get a like gut feeling, speak it, communicate it. It's not coming from fear. Like you can feel something within you is off. So share that. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. Be mindful not to consume too much about this masculine feminine stuff. It is helpful to understand, but ultimately it's about merging the two and becoming whole as a person and integrating both masculine and feminine within yourself to be a whole person, which allows you to find a whole partner and then build a life together. And just keep that in mind about the power dynamics and the individualization, that like everyone in a partnership is going to go into that power dynamic phase. It doesn't mean that something's wrong or like you're not meant to be together. You just need to find a way to neutralize it, transmute it, and then learn to be individuals choosing to be in relationship together. So I hope this was helpful. Yeah, I love you guys, and thanks for being here. And I just really have this dream and pull, and I always have, to help. I just know I'm meant to be doing work with like divine union and connections with people, because I think so many partners choose to leave each other because they don't have the tools to make it through the hard stuff together. And not that a separation season, that can sometimes be really helpful, but it's not always about finding a new partner. It's like, go all the way in with that person and move through everything you possibly can in order to build like that relationship to the next level. Because it's, no matter what is showing up in your relationship right now, until you're able to self-reflect and heal and learn what roles you played in that, it's going to show up in the next one and the next one and the next one. So switching partners is not necessarily going to be helpful. Is there times when it's like, obviously that person doesn't have capacity and isn't open? Of course. But it really makes me wonder how many men and women have split. And like the women are thinking just finding a new man, but like, what role did we play in emasculating them in the first place into not being the man that they could have been for you? You know? And we all choose partners based on our wounds. It's just the way it is. It's how relationship dynamics work. So if you married your dad, of course you did. And he's going to hurt you like your dad. And then you're meant to work through that and transmute that. Same thing with the man marrying his mom that hurt him and never showed up for him. You're meant to. And you're meant to feel that hurt and pain and then transmute it together. And not always. Sometimes relationships are not meant to last forever. But I really feel like there's so many relationships that have ended and the men are so hurt and lost. And like, I even see this with the angry men on the internet where I'm like, they're just hurt by women. And I know we're hurt by men too. And we felt let down. I understand that. But like, we can't just be like, men suck and men are wrong. No, they're not. I have two beautiful baby boys that are going to be men one day. And they are soft, loving, caring, attentive souls. No different than me. And I think when we start really looking at that as a partnership and a relationship, we're like, if your man isn't able to show his heart, show his emotions, something caused that. So get curious. And one tip I can leave you with from this Queen's Code book that I'm telling you need to read, men, so with women, when we're in a conversation, we want to be like, yeah, you're right. I understand. Yeah. And we're being agreeable to show them we're listening and being attentive. Men like to just be heard in being able to complete their full thoughts. So staying silent, not interjecting, and giving them the space to speak. And on the topic of masculine and feminine energetics, holding space like that is you being in your masculine. So for a man to be able to share, speaking outward is feminine. That's the pull, like the polarity of the dynamic where you give him the space to fully share everything he has to say without interjecting and ding, which a lot of us do as women because that's how we're used to engaging with each other. A man doesn't need that. This will blow your mind when you read this book. A man doesn't need that. You to be like, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's distracting. They're like, they already think that they're right in their point or they wouldn't be saying it. So like, they're like, why are you agreeing with me? Obviously you're agreeing because I feel like this is right. It's a whole thing. When you read this book, you're like, what the F? But if I can leave you with one tip, the next time you ask your man something, give him the space to fully answer without interjecting and stay silent in between when he's thinking through his sentences, and he'll probably give you more. Crazy, right? Yeah. Anyways, I'm so excited to keep practicing everything I learned from this book and bringing it into future relationship dynamics because, yeah, I just think, what if we did that for the men in our lives? How beautiful for them to finally feel heard too. And it makes me think, like, all of us as women, at least I know for myself, it's like I want to be seen and heard and valued and da-da-da. It's like, are we giving that to them? Are we? Are we really? Hmm. Anyways, I hope this leaves you with some self-reflection on your own relationships and dynamics. And I will link the Queen's Code book because it's so freaking good. I'm reading it and it's such an easy read. I'm like flying through it. I'm almost done. But yeah, I love you guys and I will see you in the next episode. Share this with someone if you feel like they could benefit and they're like that person, or they think that they're in their masculine, the man's in the feminine. Just share this because it's like, what if we shifted ourselves in order to create the space to allow them to blossom, grow, and shift within themselves too? Okay, bye.